Rain fell like shards of glass over the sleepy town of Canterbury, the kind of rain that made the world sound smaller, quieter, as though even heaven was listening. Emily Carter sat in the last pew of St. Benedict's Church, her fingers trembling around a half-burned candle she had lit an hour ago. She wasn't praying anymore. She had run out of words weeks ago. Her life had unraveled with cruel precision. Her mother's sudden death, her fiancé's betrayal, her job termination, all within 30 days. She had once believed that faith was a solid ground beneath her feet, but now it felt like she was standing on air, waiting to fall. The church was empty except for the faint echo of her breathing and the occasional crack of thunder rolling like judgment across the sky. Somewhere deep within the walls, an old clock ticked, its sound rhythmic and certain. Everything Emily no longer was. She had come here tonight not seeking answers, but refuge. Yet something inside her ached with an unexplainable restlessness, as if someone or something was waiting for her. When the wind blew through the chapel doors, the candles flickered, and for a second Emily thought she heard her name, soft, clear. Emily. She froze. The sound wasn't from outside. It wasn't imagined either. It came from within the silence, like the world had taken a breath just to say it. Her heart raced as she turned, her eyes darting through the rows of empty benches. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice breaking into the shadows. No reply, only the faint scent of lilies drifting from the altar, though no flowers were placed there that day. The storm outside grew louder, shaking the old stained-glass windows with every gust. Lightning flashed, painting the marble floor in streaks of white and gold. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw a figure, a man, tall, robed in light, standing near the pulpit. But when the light faded, he was gone. "I'm losing my mind," Emily muttered, rubbing her temples. She wanted to run, but her body wouldn't move. Something kept her rooted, something peaceful, powerful, and terrifying all at once. She knelt, trying to pray, but no words came. Tears fell instead. "God, if you're there, please, say something, anything." The words echoed into the air, vanishing into the hum of the storm. Then it happened again, clearer this time, and undeniable. "Emily." The voice was deep, kind, and filled with a warmth that melted through her fear. "You are not forgotten." She gasped, gripping the edge of the pew. "Who are you?" she whispered, but deep down she already knew. The warmth around her grew, like sunlight breaking through clouds. The church bells began to ring on their own, 12 times, though it was not yet midnight. The ground beneath her seemed to hum with life. She felt her pulse slow, her breath steady, her fear lifting like fog. Then, faintly, she saw him again, the same figure, clearer this time, his eyes radiant with compassion and light. "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling between disbelief and awe. "Because," the voice answered, though the figure's lips didn't move, "your pain has not been in vain. What was broken will be rebuilt." The air shimmered with invisible light, and Emily felt a weight lift from her chest, one she didn't know she'd been carrying for years. The scent of lilies deepened, wrapping around her like an embrace. "You've been calling for me without knowing it, but now I am calling your name." Emily's tears turned from sorrow to wonder. Every word resonated deep in her soul, vibrating through the silence that had haunted her for so long. She felt seen, not by the world, not by a person, but by the very essence of existence. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The figure faded, the bells went silent, the storm outside vanished as if erased from the sky. Emily was left in the stillness of the church, her candle burned to its last breath. But the peace remained. It wasn't the peace of understanding, it was the peace of surrender, the kind that comes when you finally stop fighting the unseen and start listening. Slowly she rose, her knees weak but her heart steady. "What now?" she whispered to the emptiness. A whisper brushed against her mind, gentle, certain, filled with promise. "Follow the light." The last candle on the altar flickered, glowing brighter for just a second, pointing toward the old side door of the church, the one that hadn't been opened in decades. Emily hesitated. "Follow the light," she repeated softly, her voice steadier now. And with that, she took her first step toward the unknown, unaware that what awaited beyond that door would test every ounce of her faith, courage, and soul. Emily stood before the old side door of St. Benedict's Church, her heart hammering like a prayer trapped in her chest. The candlelight trembled in her hands, casting her shadow long and trembling across the ancient stone floor. The door was older than memory itself, its wood gray and cracked, the hinges sealed by time. No one in the parish had used it in 50 years, not since the day the former caretaker disappeared after claiming to hear voices of light. She hesitated, listening for the voice again, the one that had called her name with such love it frightened her. But the air was still, only the faint hum of the candle flame and the echo of her own breathing. "Follow the light," she whispered again, repeating what she'd heard. It sounded strange now, too fragile to be divine, too human to be madness. Yet something deep in her bones told her to trust it. With trembling fingers, she pressed her hand to the door. To her shock, it opened with ease, not a creak or groan, as if the wood had been waiting for her touch. A gust of cool air spilled through, smelling of rain and lavender fields, though the storm outside should have left nothing but mud and thunderclouds. Beyond the threshold stretched a narrow path, glowing faintly beneath the moonlight, a cobblestone road that wound down the hill behind the church where the world disappeared into mist. She should have turned back. Instead, Emily stepped forward. The moment her foot touched the path, a warmth surged through her veins, the same warmth she had felt when the voice spoke her name. The church bells tolled once behind her, long and low, and then fell silent again. The world outside the church was different. The rain had stopped entirely. The air shimmered faintly, like gold dust floating in invisible water. The trees, once dark and ordinary, now seemed to hum with life. Every leaf glowed faintly, every branch seemed to reach upward like arms in prayer. Emily felt both tiny and infinite, walking in a world between heaven and earth. "Where am I?" she whispered. Her voice was softer now, reverent. A whisper came through the still air. "You are walking where faith and fear meet." She turned, but no one was there. The light that lined the cobblestone flickered gently, leading her onward. She walked for what felt like minutes, or maybe hours. Time didn't behave normally here. The moon hung unmoving above her, a silver coin frozen in eternity. The farther she went, the more memories began to surface. Her mother's laughter, her childhood prayers, the promises she once made to God and forgot when life became cruel. She felt them all return, not as guilt, but as reminders, small sparks of who she used to be. At the edge of the path stood a bridge, old and moss-covered, arcing over a stream that glittered like liquid starlight. On the other side stood a man, tall, cloaked in white, his face hidden by the hood. Emily froze. "Are you the one who spoke to me?" she called, her voice quivering but strong. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his head slightly, as if listening to something distant. Then he spoke, and the sound of his voice was both thunder and whisper, both ancient and tender. "You asked for a sign, Emily Carter? This is it." "Who are you?" she asked again, stepping closer, her heart pounding.
The messenger lifted his head, and for a moment the hood fell back enough for her to see his eyes. Light itself lived within them. "I am a messenger, but not the one you expect." Emily swallowed hard. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm nobody. I've lost everything. I don't even believe anymore." The messenger smiled, not with pity, but with knowing. "And yet you came when you heard your name. Faith is not belief without proof, child. Faith is movement in the dark." Emily felt her throat tighten. The wind around them shifted, carrying 1,000 faint whispers that sounded like prayers. She didn't understand their words, but she felt their peace. The messenger extended his hand toward her. "There is something you must see, something heaven has kept from you until now." "See what?" "Your pain's purpose." She hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Instantly the world shifted. The bridge dissolved beneath her feet, and suddenly she was standing in the middle of a vision, her life unfolding before her like a living painting. She saw herself as a child praying beside her mother's bed. She saw the night her fiancé left her, the moment she wanted to end it all, the morning she walked to the church without knowing why. Every scene shimmered in light, and between each she saw glimpses of unseen hands, guiding her steps, softening her falls, protecting her from things she never even noticed. She gasped, tears spilling freely now. "All this time," she whispered, "I thought you weren't there." The messenger's voice filled her heart. "He never left you. You simply stopped listening." The vision faded, and they stood once again beside the glowing stream. The messenger looked upward, as if hearing a voice only he could understand. "Your journey isn't done, but your heart has remembered its truth." Emily felt an overwhelming peace wash over her, yet beneath it a fear lingered. "What do I do now?" she asked. "The world outside hasn't changed. My pain, it's still waiting." "No, your pain has transformed. What waits outside isn't the same world. It's a world waiting for the new you." A faint sound echoed then, the distant ringing of the church bells again, softer, slower, like a heartbeat. "You will go back, but you will carry this light with you. The path ahead will test you again, but this time you will know that even silence is divine." The light around them began to fade, the world gently dimming into the quiet of dawn. Emily blinked, and suddenly she was standing once again at the church door, her candle still flickering faintly in her hand, though now it burned with a pure, steady glow. She looked outside. The storm had passed, and the first rays of morning brushed the sky. Everything looked ordinary again, yet nothing felt ordinary at all. Emily stepped out, barefoot on the damp cobblestones, feeling the cold and the light together. The church bell rang once, a soft note of promise. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I heard you." And somewhere beyond the veil of sound and sight, a voice replied, "And I am not done speaking."
The morning light was gentle but strange, as if the sky itself remembered what had happened the night before. Emily stepped out of St. Benedict's Church, her shoes in one hand, her candle in the other, and the wet cobblestones beneath her feet felt almost warm despite the rain. The world looked the same. Crows on the steeple, mist rising from the river, people passing by without noticing her, but she wasn't the same. Something inside her had shifted, something invisible yet unshakably real. The silence that used to haunt her now felt sacred, as though every pause, every heartbeat carried whispers from heaven. She walked home through the narrow streets of Canterbury, and though no one looked her way, she felt watched, in the kindest sense of the word. When she reached her small apartment above the bakery, everything was as she had left it. The half-empty teacup on the windowsill,
the pile of rejection letters on the table, the photograph of her mother smiling in her nurse's uniform. Only now, instead of despair, she felt a strange tenderness for the ruins of her life. She sat by the window, watching sunlight break through the last clouds, and said quietly, "All right, Lord, I'm listening." That same moment her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Is this Miss Emily Carter?" a voice asked. "This is Father Lawrence from St. Mary's Hospice. Your mother's name was Margaret, wasn't it?" Emily's breath caught. "Yes," she said softly. "Why?" The priest paused before replying. "We found something that belonged to her. A letter, sealed and marked for you. It was hidden behind one of the chapel panels." Emily's eyes filled instantly. "I'll come right away," she whispered. The hospice was a quiet brick building surrounded by oak trees, a place that always smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. When she arrived, Father Lawrence greeted her with kind eyes and an envelope in his hand. Her mother's handwriting, gentle, looping, unmistakable, covered its surface. "To my Emily, when heaven knows the time is right." Her fingers shook as she broke the seal. Inside, the paper was thin, the ink faded but legible. Her mother's words flowed like a voice from eternity. "My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, it means the Lord has decided you are ready. Life will take everything from you at least once, and when it does, you'll believe you've been abandoned. But the truth, my love, is that He only empties hands He plans to fill again. You are meant to guide others who lose their way. When you hear Him call, follow without fear. That voice will come when the world goes silent. That's how you'll know it's real." Tears streamed down her face. Her mother's voice seemed to echo through the room, gentle as the breeze through a window. Emily pressed the letter to her chest, whispering, "You knew." And then, faintly, like a ripple through the air, came that familiar whisper again. "Do you understand now?" Emily smiled through her tears. "Yes," she said, "I do." From that day on, everything began to unfold in small, miraculous ways. She found herself drawn to places where people were broken: hospital waiting rooms, shelters, empty pews. She would simply sit, listen, and somehow say the words others needed to hear. Once, while visiting an old woman who had lost her son, Emily found herself speaking words she didn't plan, words that felt borrowed from heaven itself. "He's not gone, only home early." The woman clutched her hand, crying, "How did you know to say that?" Emily didn't know. She only smiled because she didn't need to. The voice was still with her, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the quiet moments between heartbeats. Each time it spoke, it wasn't loud. It didn't command or threaten. It simply guided, gently as light through a keyhole. But heaven does not give without testing, and Emily's greatest test came one evening, months later, when she walked home and saw her old fiancé, Daniel, standing outside her apartment. His eyes were tired, his smile unsure. "Emily," he said softly, "I heard what happened, how you've changed. I don't even know how to say sorry." She felt her heart tremble, not with anger but with something deeper: grace. Once she would have turned away, but now she looked at him and said, "You don't need to say anything. I already forgave you. God forgave you before I did." He lowered his head ashamed, but she reached out and touched his arm. "Whatever happened," she whispered, "was meant to break us open, not destroy us." Tears fell from his eyes, and for a long moment they stood there, not as lovers, not as strangers, but as two souls finally free from the weight of what was. That night when Emily went to bed, the voice came again, soft, proud, infinite. "You have done what many cannot: love after pain, believe after loss." She smiled, whispering back, "And I will keep listening." Years passed, the world turned, seasons changed, and the story of Emily Carter became a quiet legend in her town.
People said the woman from Canterbury carried a light in her heart that never dimmed, that miracles seemed to follow her footsteps. She never claimed them as her own. She only said, "The Lord is calling your name too. You just have to stop long enough to hear it." On her final morning, many years later, Emily sat by her window once again, the same candle burning beside her. The sky was soft pink, the air still. She felt her breath slowing but peaceful, her heart steady. And in that last moment, when the world went silent, she heard it again, the voice that began it all. "Emily." She smiled, eyes closing, whispering, "I'm here." The candle flickered once, then went out, but the light never left. For miles around, people woke to find a calmness in the air they couldn't explain, as if heaven had leaned close to earth and exhaled. And from somewhere unseen, a whisper echoed through every soul that would ever hear her story. "The Lord is calling your name today. Heaven's message has arrived. God speaks now."